Here's what it says. The sheriff's office settles lawsuit with former church member outed for blog. This is in Jacksonville, Florida. It says, the sheriff's office in Jacksonville, Florida has agreed to study its conflict of interest code for detectives and develop a training program on First Amendment considerations as part of a settlement with an anonymous blogger who was unmasked by the office's power of subpoena for criticizing his former pastor. The city and state must pay $50,000 to Tom Rich, a former member of Jacksonville's First Baptist Church. Rich operated a FBC Jack's Watchdog, a blog often critical of the church's pastor, Mac Brunton. First Baptist has long been the largest Christian denominational church in the county, or in the country, and one of the most prominent congregations in the Southern Baptist Convention. Rich filed a lawsuit in 2009 claiming a violation of his First Amendment rights guaranteeing free speech and prohibiting the establishment of religion when Detective Robert Hinson, a member of First Baptist, who served on the pastor's security detail, got a subpoena ordering Rich's internet service provider to reveal his identity. So what we're basically talking about is that there's a member of the church who is a member of the police department as well.
Right.
And there's this blogger who's anonymously criticizing the pastor, and he abused his authority and basically did state work on behalf of the church. That clearly, it's sort of like, I'm investigating something, not because I feel that there's a crime and I have some sort of probable cause that I can provide with the police department.
In order to remove someone's anonymity when they were reporting about wrongs at the church.
He's basically using police resources, state resources, to investigate somebody that the church wants to look into for criticizing the pastor. He's a member of this congregation.
There's 3 or 4 shades of First Amendment issues here. There's the doing the work of a church on the state's dime. There's freedom of speech.
Yeah.
There is reasonable expectation of privacy, which is why a lot of these.
Yeah, it isn't like he's committing a crime. They wanted to investigate him because they wanted to toss him out of the church.
Yeah.
Not because they thought he was committing some sort of a crime or abusing, anybody. I mean, he was. It's weird. He was basically criticizing a pastor, and they wanted to out him so they could.
Well, they
did. And it's
I don't want to say all's well that ends well, because this didn't end well. Work done for the church on the state's dime, but
there's consequences here. It says that Rich claimed he chose to blog anonymously to draw attention to issues in the church rather than himself, and thought it would encourage more open discussion. In allowing the case to move forward, U.S. District Judge Marsha Morales Howard noted that the Supreme Court ruled that the First Amendment protects anonymous speech. After he was exposed, Rich says that the church obtained trespass warnings against him and began proceedings to revoke his church membership. Eventually, he and his wife left their church of more than 20 years to join another congregation. While the settlement does not admit wrongdoing by the Jacksonville Sheriff's or State Attorney's offices, Sheriff John Rutherford agreed to meet with Rich and his lawyers and the city's legal counsel to discuss ethical issues arising from the case. So basically, there was a $50,000 thing in there in the settlement. But it's amazing that this is that weird sort of sense of immunity to everyone else's rules, a special set of rights that a lot of religions seem to unknowingly sort of try to give themselves, that somebody's attacking this glorious thing, therefore I can essentially abuse my position with the state to go after somebody that I disagree with on theological basis. It's really absurd.
It's the bigger this is especially true in the bigger in the mega churches where it's like, I've got a flock of 50 or 60,000 people. I can run around violating laws with impunity, and it happens again and again and again. That's what got people like Peter Popoff. It wasn't the fact that they were quacks. It was the fact that they had a bunch of people under them doing things that weren't particularly legal, and that's really
it's that weird sort of sense, like they somehow think that the criticism of the church is somehow comparable to them, or it's somehow less worse than them actually abusing this guy's privacy. Violating this guy's privacy and using state resources to basically try to root out church enemies.
Yeah.
That's
scary.
nuts. Speaking of kind of scary.
Our next story comes to us from the Sydney Morning Herald, and it's baby dies as family jump to escape devil. A baby was killed and several more people seriously injured when a family of 11 threw themselves from a third-floor flat to flee a man they mistook for the devil, French investigators said. The bizarre tragedy came to light on Saturday when firefighters were called to the village of La Vierre, on the outskirts of Paris, following reports that several people had jumped from a balcony in a welfare housing block. Among the injured, they found an entirely naked man of African origin with a knife wounded his hand, and 2 children, a baby and a 2-year-old girl. The baby died later after receiving hospital treatment in Paris. The assistant prosecutor from Versailles, Odile Favre, told reporters the incident began in the early hours when a group of 13 people were watching television in an apartment and the naked man heard the baby cry. The man got up to prepare a bottle for the baby when his wife, seeing him, screamed, "It's the devil, it's the devil," Favre explained.
I really don't know what we can say about that.
No, that is a weird one.
That is weird on almost every level.
Yeah, in the confusion following this apparent case of mistaken identity...
Yeah, there's egg on my face.
The naked man's sister-in-law stabbed him in the hand, and he was ejected through the front door of the flat. When he attempted to get back in, panic erupted. And at that point, panic erupted is that the only way to escape the devil was to leap out a window.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you should be afraid of him. Clearly the stabbing worked.
If the stabbing worked and he's bleeding...
as Jesse Ventura once said, if it bleeds, we can kill it. And
what was that on Conspiracy Theory, or...
That was in Predator.
Oh, it was in Predator? Okay, so Alex Jones not involved?
No.
Okay.
But I do believe Alex Jones bleeds.
Probably. Screams a lot.
But I wonder, though, maybe this is a question of outing him as the devil. This is sort of something like John Carpenter's The Thing, or is stabbing him in the hand some sort of method of determining if he's the devil?
Oh, right. If the blood goes into the water and it floats, he's a witch or a devil.
Yeah, if he weighs the same as a duck, I think.
Oh, if he weighs... Okay, the blood weighs the same as a duck.
Hey.
We have a call.
Randy from California. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Very well.
Happy Halloween.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm actually one of those guys who hides out during holidays. I don't have a family, so I don't I don't really want to participate much.
Yeah.
So what have you got for us today?
Oh, well, a couple of things. First of all, I want to thank you guys for being on the air.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Man, I really thought I was the only voice out there that was supporting atheism. And I live right in the middle of a Bible Belt area, you know.
Well, like Eastern California?
No, Central Valley.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And you know, it's a bunch of farmers here, and it's, like I say, it's a Bible Belt area. But it's stunning how these people can be so dependent on their faith, and yet anything that has to do, if I mention anything at all about religion of any kind, they just have a fit about it.
Yeah.
I have a computer repair shop, and I have a whiteboard up that I put, you know, different things up there. Usually it's something computer related that people have been asking me a lot. And one day I put up there, science requires you to question everything. Mm-hmm. Religion depends on belief without question. And you wouldn't believe the flack I got for that.
Oh, I can imagine. I know that it sounds a lot like something that one of our hosts, Scott, has said on occasion, that science has answers or questions that may never be answered, and religion has answers that may never be questioned.
Right.
And it really is. I think that a lot of religions do build up this sort of brain force field in its adherents, that if they hear anything that contradicts their beliefs, and also, could you turn down the volume on your TV or stream? It's creating a little bit of an echo.
Oh, it can't, because I wasn't able to connect.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
So, just more fun audio.
That was one of the things that I ran into when I lived in Phoenix. Is I talk about this in my first episode. Is that for years in Phoenix, I was the only atheist that I really knew, and people would talk to me about their faith and how important it was to them, and sort of things that would happen in the community, like that they'd reach certain milestones, like confirmation or baptism or something like that. And I would congratulate them because this is obviously important to them. But I would talk about atheism, and I get slapped down because I was against the faith or something like that, even though I was just really trying to participate in the community.
Yeah, it's a little weird, but like I said, it's that force field that you hear anything that contradicts your own belief, people have a tendency, they're in a lot of ways programmed to be very defensive.
Yeah.
That's why you have a lot of people who are critics of, say, Richard Dawkins, who have never actually read The God Delusion or watched any of his lectures.
We got the one phone call where somebody was talking about how bad Richard Dawkins was,
Yeah.
and his only access to Richard Dawkins was via an episode of South Park.
Yeah,
He'd actually never heard the man speak.
He'd never heard him speak. He'd never heard anything he said. If you get this sort of meta-analysis, where, and I think a lot of people do this, they don't necessarily look up anything for themselves. They simply take someone else's word for it.
Yeah.
Like they hear something their pastor says, oh, well, Dawkins says that the world would be a paradise if everyone was just an atheist. It's like, well, he's never actually said that.
Like when we called Pat Robertson an asshat.
Yes.
There was a bit of, on one of the discussion lists I'm on, there was a bit of a sort of a tiff about that because we said Pat Robertson was an asshat, and he's not an asshat. It was quoted like this: he's a terrible human being who does this list of terrible things.
And he enjoys the suffering of others.
And he enjoys the suffing of others. Therefore,
I'd say that enjoying the suffering of others is a pretty much a good prerequisite for being an asshat.
Yeah.
I'll stick to that. It's a little weird that you're like, oh no, he's awful in this myriad of ways, but oh, you don't want to call him a name. That's why you call people names. If you can't call this guy a name.
So, is there anything more you have for us, Randy?
No, that was about it. I just find it. I guess I'm a little appalled by it because when I talk, especially when people approach me, to talk about it, I tell them basically there's only one prerequisite, and that is that my opinions have to count too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And then as soon as I bring up my opinions, then not only do they discount them, but they're offended. And I don't say anything that is offensive. I don't think. I mean, I don't call anybody names. I don't say that that they're crazy for believing what they do. Although I usually think that.
Yeah, but again, sometimes simply saying you disagree with them, for them, I think it comes from the fact that for a long time, atheists have been really, really silent about our beliefs. We sort of stared at our shoes and kind of just sat there when people say things. A lot of it is we've started responding to a lot of people who say this sort of stuff, and we do want to thank you for your call.
Thank you for your call.
But yeah, a lot of it is we've been so quiet for so long that people aren't used to hearing us.
Yeah.
So it sounds louder and more strident and angry than it really is, because if you even listen to a speech by Dawkins, that guy is so remarkably mellow.
Yeah. He does get his game on once in a while, but it's always very polite, and he's always within the context.
Yeah.
But, and another thing is that since we've been quiet for so long, the threshold of attack is lower to the point where many people, the fact that I'm willing to say that I'm an atheist publicly is construed as an attack, even though I've said nothing about how I actually feel about their faith or whether or not I respect them or anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
And if they would actually sit and listen, they'd probably find out that I, for the most part, do respect them. Regardless of their faith, I respect them because they're human beings and they're moral people. But because I'm willing to say that I'm an atheist, and because there's been silence on the atheism front for so long, it's not automatically an attack.
And that's also why I like the fact that there are multiple shows doing this, because more and more people actually have to see us for who we are and what we believe and what we have to say, rather than what people have to say about what we believe and what we say. Again, the meta-analysis helps nobody, and you have to realize that you're hearing it through a filter. And like you said, this instinct to interpret it as an attack. Like, for instance, whenever I've tabled with Seattle atheists, there are people who storm right up to the booth and just start yelling at me as if simply having this banner above me is my, the first salvo in some sort of fight, that simply just stating my existence and saying that I'm just as capable of morality as anybody else is just intolerable to some people, that they're so used to having this monopoly on speech about things like values and beliefs.
There's also the sort of conflating factor of their own values for when they show up publicly as a religious person, is that when we have a booth, when we have this TV show, we have said time and time again, one of the things that we say time and time again is that we are not evangelizing for atheism so much. We're not trying to convert you to become an atheist if you're not an atheist and watching the show. For us, this is about visibility. For us, this is about just getting our voice out there. And that's true for the booths at the street fairs and stuff like that for Seattle atheists as well.
Yeah, like Randy says, our opinion has to count too.
Our opinion has to count. But the thing is when a church or a religious organization does the boothing that we do, they're usually doing it for the purpose of proselytization. Is that they're there to try and convert people.
They are trying to
try to
recruit.
convince people that they have the truth. And so they see that, and they automatically make the connection, well, when we do this,